listening to the Creativity of Beats podcast with Omito Beats.
All right, what's going on, guys? This is the first episode of my new podcast called The Creativity of Beats. I just wanted to take a moment to thank you guys so much for joining, tuning in. This is going to be a lot of fun, for sure. I'm excited for this podcast and what's going to bring and all the episodes to come. So I go by the name of Omito, or on all my social media accounts, Omito Beats. And I just thought for this podcast I would start by giving, a brief introduction of myself, who I am, what type of music I make, and also how this podcast came to be, right? This was a podcast, or this idea, it wasn't originally a podcast. I mean, I had this idea, and I'm going to talk about this shortly, but I had this idea, and I spent a few months figuring out how I want to execute it, right? And I came to the decision that a podcast is going to be the way to go. And I'm also going to, in this episode, just talk about what you guys can expect every week. So I know this might not be the most exciting episode, but you know what? This is an introduction episode, right? This is the first one. So who am I? Who are you guys listening to right now? I go by the name of Omito, or on all my social media accounts, Omito Beats is where you can find me, and probably where you found this podcast too. So I am a 21-year-old music producer from Toronto, Canada, the 6th, and I've been making beats for a long time now. Like it's got to be like 10 years or something. I started super young. I started when I was in grade school, and I came across the software online that allowed me to make music, and I learned a lot about making music from watching tutorials on YouTube, and eventually I made my own YouTube channel where I would upload my beats and get into the whole type beat market and industry, and really grow my YouTube channel and my brand. And I think it's almost been 8 years since I've made my YouTube channel, which is crazy, right? I mean, time really goes by quickly. It's hard to believe that that channel is almost 8 years old, but I've been uploading beats for 8 years, a little bit more because I had a second channel before that. And my YouTube channel now is approaching 100,000 subscribers. I'm going after that plaque. I'm going to get that this year for sure. But yeah, so I've spent all these years when I was in high school and college learning so much about production and so much about making beats, and not just making beats, but how to market my beats online and for real make a living off of this type beat industry, right? I mean, it's possible. And in this podcast, I'm going to be sharing tips and secrets and strategies, what to do, what not to do, a whole bunch of stuff about making beats. And I also don't want to just limit it to making beats either, because as a music producer, as a beat maker, you're not just a beat maker, you're an instrumental artist. So I think I have tips and stories and strategies that can help anyone who's not if you're just a beat maker, but if you're an artist, if you're a singer, if you're a rapper, if you're a songwriter, if you're just anyone who likes music. I hope that you find these stories entertaining, and maybe they can inspire you. And if you're trying, if you're an entrepreneur or working on a project, this podcast, I hope, brings some value to you and gives you something that you can take away. But so back to who I am, because a lot of this podcast is going to be me rambling off too. And with this podcast, I'm not really going to spend too much time editing it, because I just want to tell you guys how it is, right? And I think that when I go off on these different rambles, right? I think I might be able to share a point that you guys might find useful. So bear with me, because I am probably going to go off on rambles during some episodes. But anyways, back to who I am. So I've been making beats for all these years. I've made a living off of making beats in my bedroom, right? I'm a bedroom producer. I've got my, small studio setup, and I've grown it to a level that this is my full-time job. And, I started off making hip-hop music, making hip-hop beats, selling, Drake-type beats, Kendrick-type beats, J. Cole-type beats to rappers. But more recently, I've been branching off and doing different things. I've been getting super experimental with it. I've been doing, dancehall beats, tropical house, EDM. And in my years of producing, I've always been one to do different things and experiment. I'm a strong believer of not being tied down to one genre if you're a musician or an artist. I mean, there's too many good genres out there. Music is too good to be restricted to only one genre. So I make pop beats, I make EDM. I've even experimented with some, rock type beats or R&B type beats or like dubstep. I mean, I've taken inspiration from so many different genres, so many different musicians, and I hope to deliver, the things that I've learned to you guys as well. So that's a bit about who I am. I'll probably get more into that in another podcast episode, breaking down the specifics, but I also just wanted to talk about how this podcast came to be. What is the creativity of beats? Why is it a podcast? What came to this point, right? So I was in college, and I graduated college at the end of the summer of 2017, which was, I'm going to say 8 months ago. That's just quick maths. Might be wrong, but 8-ish months ago, I finished a 3-year program where I was in marketing, business marketing, right? And it was crazy because I worked so hard at making beats and selling beats as a side hustle. And then when I finished college, it was time for me to do beats full time, right? So I had this open agenda. I didn't have really any other commitments at the time. And I wanted to do something new, something exciting. And I've always been one to love giving advice to, producers or musicians who are starting out. Because when I started back, 8-10 years ago, when I started producing, there were no resources online, right? So I've always been one to tell people how it is and give them advice, because it was so hard for me to learn the ropes as I got into this industry. So I wanted to do something to deliver my thoughts and what inspires me and what motivates me and help others and share my story, right? So this was something that I wanted to do, and I basically wanted to share my creative process with you guys. I wanted to share with you what went through my mind when I get into my bedroom studio and when I open up, my music production software and I start making beats. What do I envision? How did I learn these techniques? And also when I make, what do I do to give my beats something that's unique and something that's creative and something that stands out? I mean, we know there are so many producers and musicians right now. So there's a lot of competition. So being unique and being creative is key, because that's how you distinguish yourself in this saturated market, right? And so I wanted to do something that explained my creative process to you guys. And I originally thought it was going to be a YouTube series called My Creative Process or The Creative Process. But YouTube hasn't been a real focus for me as much as, Instagram recently. And I've sort of been changing the way that I'm selling beats and the way I'm looking at this now that I'm out of school and I have a lot more free time. So I didn't know if YouTube was also the way to go for this, if the market's changing on YouTube. And I also didn't want to spend too much time worrying about how to make it look good, how to set up proper camera angles and how to edit a video properly, right? And so I thought that with this, I can just straight up tell you guys how it is, right? I mean, not a whole lot of editing going on here. This is just me telling you guys face to face how it is. So I thought a podcast would be the way to go, where I wouldn't have to spend a whole lot of time focusing on editing and making it look nice, because the main point of this podcast is the message that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. I'm going to be sharing stories every week. And I also thought that if you guys are just watching me in the same setup every single week, it's probably going to get old, right? And so I don't want to just have 100 videos of me in the exact same position. I just thought it would be too repetitive, right? But now you can listen to me wherever you want. So that's how this podcast came to be. But the name of the podcast, The Creativity Beats, because I forgot to mention this. So like I said, it was going to be some sort of web series that explained my creative process on making beats and what I think of. But that name I just thought was maybe too generic. And also, I'm pretty sure there's like 200 other podcasts with that same name out there, like The Creative Process. I'm sure that's been done before. And I wanted to make it more specific to who I am. So the creativity of beats. This just is about, making beats and all the creativity that comes with it, right? Like, you're your own musician. When you make beats, or when you even make music, you have an empty canvas to work with. The possibilities here are endless, right? There's no limit to how creative you can get, and that's something that I really want to push and motivate you guys with this episode, or with these episodes, right? And so what to expect with this podcast, I'm going to try and do it weekly at the least. Some weeks there might be more than one episode, but I'd say expect a new episode every week. Every week I'm going to try and have a different topic. Maybe one week is what motivates me. Maybe one week is where I draw inspiration from. Another week might be, what platform is best for you? Is YouTube still good for a music producer or a musician? Is SoundCloud the way to go? Is Spotify the way to go, right? And I might even break that down into more episodes where I analyze these different social media networks and tell you guys my thoughts and opinions and if it's worth your while. And eventually, I'm going to get into episodes where I bring on music producers, I bring on artists, I bring on any music person or anyone and interview them. And I also am going to be doing some episodes where I either break down a beat that I've made or make a beat live where you guys can hear me producing and hear my commentary on it. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff. I'm happy that I'm finally getting the chance to do this and to execute this plan that I've had for a few months now. And I'm going to wrap it up there. So yeah, this was just the introductory episode. I know I may have gone on a little bit longer than expected, but hopefully you guys are just as excited as I am for this podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope that I motivate you guys a lot. And yeah, so I'll see you guys next time. In a few days, I'll have a new episode out. Make sure that you guys follow me on my Instagram at Omito Beats. And you can visit my website to listen to all of my instrumentals at omitobeats.net. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later.